trial today.
Well, a huge settlement for a landscaper who was convicted of 2 rapes. He spent 15 years behind bars until DNA tests proved he was not the one. Now he's $1.6 million richer after a settlement with Upper Marion Township, Pennsylvania. That's the township that locked him up. And now the Supreme Court hearing arguments today over whether police can force you to identify yourself. All this comes back to a case from Nevada in which a cop was investigating a crime and asked a man for his name. The guy repeatedly refused to tell the officer who he was. He was handcuffed, arrested, and eventually convicted for resisting an officer. Joining us now from Studio B, the senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. I guess the guy was in a vehicle at the time, in there with his daughter.
Right.
And some cop thinks he's done something, but he knows he hadn't done anything.
Actually, go ahead. At the time this happened, he was outside the vehicle. So this is not a motor vehicle stop. If the police stop you and you're driving your vehicle, you must show your driver's license, registration, and insurance.
But he's outside.
He's outside the vehicle. So this case, which has become a rallying cry, there's a lot of briefs that were filed in the Supreme Court, friend of the court briefs, by all kinds of organizations on the left and the right, saying the government doesn't have the right to ask you who you are if there's no suspicion about you.
I'm trying to figure, I'm trying to picture myself walking outside the building here, and some New York cop, God bless the New York Police Department, but some New York cop comes up to me and goes, "Yo, what's your name?"
Well, they would know who you were.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
I can't imagine that. I mean, like, who the hell do you think you are? What's my name?
A lot of people believe, and I agree with your argument right here, it's un-American to have to show your papers. This isn't East Germany or the old Soviet Union.
Yeah.
The state of Nevada says, we were investigating a crime. We had a description of somebody who matched this fellow. It was for his safety, for the officer's safety, for the safety of the young woman with him, who we later learned was his daughter. We didn't know it at the time, for us to find out who he is. He says, look, not only do I have a right to remain silent, but the first thing the police say, or are supposed to say when they stop you is, you have a right to remain silent. So the Supreme Court has never ruled on this issue, and the issue in a nutshell is this. Do you have to answer a question from a police officer in the street, or can you walk away? Most legal scholars would tell you you can walk away because the Supreme Court has never said you can't. And there's lots of language in other Supreme Court cases which would seem to indicate you can walk away. But this Supreme Court wanted to hear this. I spoke to someone who was at the oral argument today, and he thinks it's going to go in the favor of Nevada. We'll see.
Does this have wider-ranging applications first, and how much trouble might this be for police second?
It has wider-ranging applications, effects, because the Justice Department filed a friend of the court brief. And the Justice Department's brief is on the side...
John Ashcroft's department.
John Ashcroft is on the side of Nevada, leading people to believe if the Supreme Court sides with Nevada in this case, you can bet there's going to be congressional legislation requiring you either to carry an ID or to tell the police who you are when they stop you.
That's a weird-sounding thought, but let's face it, we're very close to it anyway. And, you know, some state licenses are so much easier to copy than the rest. We already have Social Security. They can figure out, heck, they can figure out anything about us they want.
Well, when I go through an airport, I carry my passport because everybody recognizes that. But I carry it because I want to, not because the government requires me to.
That's true, and that's the key.
That's the key.
All right, Judge. Thank you.
Pleasure, Shep.
Coming up from Studio B, folks in some parts of California aren't allowed to light up in public beaches. Legal product, by the way. Outdoors in a public place. Not allowed to use it. We'll talk to someone from the American Lung Association who says it's about darn time, thank you. And the 9/11 finger-pointing from a former White House terrorism advisor now turning into a political showdown. You know, the Kerry camp called Fox News Channel yesterday and said, hey, why don't you put Clark on? Not that Clark, the other Clark, the one who used to run for president. We'll pay for the satellite time. Neil Cavuto will talk to a former Democratic presidential candidate, that very one, coming up next on Your World.